Yeah, California's in a drought. You know?
It's real. It's going to take a decade to get out. We had 5 years of record rainfall.
Yeah, Ian told me this. Ian hooked us up.
Okay. Hello, it's Lily MacLeod, and on the program thingy it says that mine's called vulnerability, but I don't particularly like that anymore, so I changed it to it's a beautiful world. It's a little bit roasting, I think. Maybe that's part of my problem, but whatever. Okay. I've learned a great deal on this program. I've learned how to question, how to argue, how to form an opinion. I've learned about public health systems, education systems, agriculture systems. I've learned about what it means to be a woman, how a picture can say 1,000 words, and I've learned how to communicate with people who don't speak my own language. I've learned all this and more, but the biggest lesson is one that I've just started to figure out. I've been learning since day one of this trip and day one of my life how to be myself, how to be fully and completely 100% Lily and be fully and completely 100% confident in that. I have been slowly but steadily building up this brick. It's a brick wall that is insulated with bulletproof glass and some of that foam that you use in recording studios so the sound doesn't ever. It's been a method of protection against this scary, scary world. But after traveling around a scary world and seeing how not so scary it all is, the wall just doesn't seem as necessary anymore. It started going up around the time when my cousin Lucas passed away in August of 2009. My emotions, they got all mixed up, and I had no words to describe the pain that I was in. I was only 13, so I wasn't really supposed to deal with losing someone I loved so much and someone who was so close in age to me. I never really saw my family mourn, and I never really saw my aunt, Lucas's mother, mourn, so I didn't really think I had a right to. In my own time, I could, but outside of my bedroom, I tried to not show my true feelings. I remember breaking down once at his wake and just feeling everything. Every emotion I could conjure up, all my worries and fears, every memory, every story, it all came up and I was a mess. I hated feeling so out of control. And I hated the feeling of people comforting me. I didn't want to be the one comforted. I wasn't the one who had just lost a son, yet here I was crying harder than I had ever before and with my aunt saying that it was okay. I saw sadness as weakness, and I couldn't be weak. I had to be strong for my family, for my aunt, for the family my cousin had left behind. I wouldn't go into his old bedroom. I wouldn't say his name. I wouldn't show weakness because this was something that I could control. I also realized how much control over my own life I had. I realized that my life was in my own hands, and if tomorrow I didn't want that anymore, I had an option. It gave me this strange sense of strength that if I could see no point in living anymore but choose to keep going, I was in control and I was strong. I really quickly found to escape from whatever I was thinking or feeling. I used books as a way to live in a new world, pretending to be the protagonist of the story. Theater also proved to be a great method of escape. For those few hours on stage, I wasn't Lily anymore. I was a completely different person with completely different problems. It became a toxic environment for me because I would rather escape my life than live another person's reality rather than face my own truth. It was also a dangerous environment for people like myself who already didn't have great self-confidence. Coming into high school, I was feeling like I wasn't as good as the people surrounding me. I wasn't as pretty, as smart, as well-liked. I spent so much time on my own but would blame other things on why I didn't have a good group of friends yet. Like I wasn't funny enough, I wasn't well-rounded, I didn't have as high of a GPA as other students. And it sounds so irrational looking back, but reason was so hard to come by. I was extreme in every way, in my thinking, in my actions, in my reactions. I would worry every time my mom called me that someone else had died. I worried that when I came home to an empty house that my whole family was gone. When people didn't respond to me right away, I would come up with thousands of reasons why they didn't like me anymore. I stopped speaking up in conversations with friends because they all seemed to talk over me even though I wasn't really doing any of the talking. And then suddenly I get to senior year and everything starts to be okay. I'm looking forward to the future, to the possibility of college, studying theater, and meeting new people. I have an amazing friend group, and I'm doing well in school. So as soon as the slightest inkling comes that I might fall back into this dark hole that's been following me for so long, I know I'm doing something wrong. College just doesn't seem fun anymore. When it used to be an exciting place with new people, I can now think of all the reasons why I wouldn't meet anybody. When studying theater used to be a no-brainer, I start to see all the negative ways this crucial part of who I am affects me. I'm starting to realize that I had little to no control over what was going to happen in the next 4 years, and that freaked me out. And then I pulled out this idea I had in the back of my head since 7th grade: travel, an actual escape from everything. In 7th grade, I learned about TVV, and since then had been reading the blogs of past students, watching POLs, picturing myself traveling around the world, and I turned 19. So I applied to this program, stopped applying to colleges, and started to get back to the place that I was at the beginning of senior year. I was so excited to travel, to become a new person, to leave this place. Of course, I had my doubts. I had my moments of extreme stress and anxiety. At one point, I told my friend that I wasn't really going on this program to make new friends, because I didn't want to accept a seemingly obvious reality of not making any. But then September hits, and everybody's left for school, and I was counting down the days, procrastinating packing, and stalking everybody on Facebook. I imagined myself in South Africa with a fabulous host family and just seeing really, really hard things, but learning how to be strong through it all. And I would obviously love India. I would maybe discover religion there and learn more about my spiritual side. Thailand would be my second favorite country because it would be really hot, and then Ecuador would be amazing because after Ecuador, I would get to climb Machu Picchu, which was a dream of mine forever. And I told myself before I left that I would be okay. I wouldn't break down. I would be strong, and I would be tough and likable, and I would need to escape because this would be the ultimate escape. In high school, I hated not knowing who I was. I hated feeling insecure in my identity. I hated not even knowing my identity. I wanted to come out of this program with a stronger sense of self, of my weaknesses, of my strengths, of what I love, of what maybe I want to study in college. I wanted to figure out who the heck I was and where my place in this huge world was. And I figured that these next 7 months would be a perfect place to start. And in a way, it was. At the very least, it was to start the exploration. Plettenberg Bay, South Africa was a beautiful town right on the ocean. We had our host families, all who welcomed in 15 teenagers into their homes so graciously. We had the men and the women who worked with us each day as they went house to house, caring for the sick and the stubborn. In South Africa, I gained a new feeling of confidence that came from a strange sort of realization that a crucial part of my identity was being a woman. I had never really considered myself a woman before, because in my head this meant adult and old and someone who had it all figured out. But I wasn't a girl either, because I was a little bit old, I was almost an adult, and I had nothing figured out yet. In South Africa, we had a seminar with the question, what is the relationship between power and identity? We all stood in a circle and stepped into it when an identity applied to you. It was a very powerful seminar. People didn't have to speak to the reasons of why they stepped in, but seeing people who you were just starting to really know acknowledge parts of who they are that they might not want to think about made you truly appreciate this unique, amazing group of people. I wasn't expecting such a strong feeling of self to wash over me when the identity woman got called. But stepping into that circle then, for whatever reason, was insanely powerful. I felt so proud and so sure of who I was in that moment, and it was an amazing feeling. One that I'd been waiting for so long. At the same time, I was working on a media project, but the question, what does it mean to be a woman? I got to interview some of the women I had met in my time and ask them the best and worst parts of being a woman. It was these conversations that gave power to the title. My answer to the question, what is the relationship between power and identity, is that it's a strong one. I've come to believe that if you don't find power in your own identity, it's hard to claim it as your own. It's harder to fight for, and it's a lot easier for people to say that it's wrong. A lot easier said than done, but when I left South Africa, I was so much more confident in calling myself both a woman and a feminist. I felt like I could stick up for women because I was now in solidarity with them. And then India happened. India, in my mind, is a huge orchestra of sound, but they haven't all gotten the tempo down. There's a lot of different rhythms, a lot of different beats, and it's really difficult for the conductor to organize it all because each musician is very confident that their rhythm is the right one. India has a mind of its own. Works in most cases without influence from the outside world, making this a place like no other. It's difficult to fully explain what India is like. I tend to stick with, it's completely and totally India. I was excited about this new foreign place. India seemed one on everyone's lists of places to travel, and we were studying education, which was the topic I'd been looking forward to. It's complicated to write about my time there because even though India had the most difficult days of the program for me, it was also the time where I learned the most. This was a place where I learned how to question all the actions I took and that I actually had more control than I thought towards my education. It was also the place that took away the power I felt in an identity I had just claimed as my own. I felt angry in India and sad in India and frustrated and confused, and I had no idea how to handle all these emotions, so I did what I do best and I tried to escape it all again. I started to build back up that wall I so wanted to take down. I would find ways to forget where I was by reading and throwing myself into seminars and spending each moment I could in that safe little space we had created in IDEX. Some days were harder than others to get out of bed, and most nights I would lie awake for hours just trying to keep everything I felt under control. I would stand in front of the mirror in my bathroom and say over and over again, "You're okay, you're okay, you are okay." It scared me that here I was in India traveling around the world with this gap year program I had always dreamed of doing, yet I was so sad and so quick to see the negative. I was scared how I would act when I got home, that if that voice in my head, those nasty comments would subside because I was comfortable, or if they would increase and get stronger because I was so comfortable. But starting at the beginning of India, I was doing well. I remember thinking that I was going to be okay. None of my self-deprecating habits had come up, and I was so completely and totally happy to be here, living in this beautiful world alongside these beautiful people. In South Africa, I remember waiting for that push, for the moment when I was forced out of my comfort zone and having to learn how to cope with the not so beautiful parts of this world. But I never really had that moment there. I always felt safe, and everything still seemed wonderful. But when every day in India I was pushed out of my comfort zone, it became a lot harder to find the lessons in the moments when I felt most uncomfortable. I felt like I had to constantly show strength toward adversity and resist any emotion considered weak before, like sadness or depression. In India, the once powerful connection to being a woman now felt pointless because in India, women belonged to men. I went to a wedding during my time there, and it was a wedding where the bride had never met her husband before, until the night before the wedding, and where the bride arrived covered head to toe so no one could see her face. But when I sat down next to her to offer a token of luck for the future, her veil was lifted and I could see her face. She was about my age, no trace of a smile, looking extremely nervous. And it is this scared face that I saw too often in India, from the students I was teaching to even the teachers that taught them. I saw it in each of the women in this group in New Delhi, and I saw it in the faces of women we passed in the street. I hated being this scared woman who couldn't stick up for herself. I hated that I felt that I was back in high school, no self-confidence, thinking I had no significance, comparing myself endlessly to those around me. I left India with more than enough to think about. Education systems, my own education, how much control I can have over it. I left wondering about universal ethics and the arguments of right versus wrong. I left very unsure of my place in all of this, very uncertain of myself, and very ready to leave India and move to a seemingly paradise, Thailand. Arriving in Thailand after India was a breath of fresh air, literally. The air was so clean, the streets were so quiet, and we were all so happy to be in this warm, seemingly safe little corner of the world. I arrived with the mindset that I would take a bit of a vacation from my thoughts in India. Thailand would be my escape from India. I would worry about everything in Ecuador. To have that luxury again. But I was on TVB. And in TVB, you don't escape from your thoughts. You sit down and you talk through whatever you're thinking, and you have someone there besides you, as close as you will let them, ready to catch you when you fall and ready to raise you up. See, I don't think I ever fully understood that. I never grasped the idea that these 17 other people were here for me. As much as I was there for them, they were here to support me and love me. In Thailand, we had a debriefing seminar in India. Each person got to say their story and their experiences, but no one could respond. This was so we could listen and respect somebody else's story without giving an opposing argument or their own side. It was a really good example of how special and amazing this group is. We have created this safe little circle where we can acknowledge judgments and then question them. Allow for those listening to express empathy and support and share their ups and downs in their whole life story. I felt a little guilty doing my POL on things that I hadn't really talked about in the larger group. Because the thing is that I respect these people more than most. And I value their opinions and their experiences. And I take what they say into deep consideration. I didn't want to let them down. I was scared to show what I thought was weakness. because I thought I had no control over what happened after. I had no control over their actions or their thoughts or their judgments. But after seeing time after time the amount of love and respect shown towards everyone's story, I still couldn't let go of control. I left for this gap year as a way to escape from everything, from my thoughts, from my town, from my friends, from my family, but I haven't really been escaping. Instead, I've been living a reality that I've always dreamed of. Being able to travel and to meet some of the most incredible people and have these people be my closest friends is something that I thought I would never do. I was always so scared of this world, so scared of being someone that I hated and scared of letting the people I love down. Instead, I've seen how beautiful this world is, and I've started to become a person that I'm growing to love. I used to be so scared. One day, my thoughts and feelings would overwhelm me so much, and I would escape from this life completely. I was so scared that one day nothing would be worth getting up for, but I've also learned on this program how much can happen in one day. Getting out of bed is just the first step. Samantha and I have a joke about how much you can accomplish before 1 p.m., which was the time that we woke up in Quito one day. And it's true. You can climb a bit of the Inca Trail. You can plant some vegetables, you can discuss development, you can fly to Peru. And obviously I need to find some activities that are a bit more local, but you get the idea. I'm excited for the unknown, and I'm excited for the endless possibilities of the future. I'm extremely grateful for these past 7 months, the ups and the downs, the people that I've met, the places I've seen, and the weird food I've tasted. Each has influenced me in ways I'm just starting to figure out. As this program came to an end, I started to become more comfortable with the idea that my identity is fluid. It's ever-changing as I have more and more experiences and meet more and more people. All will influence my future self, and I'm excited to see who I will be. I'm ridiculous for the past 7 months. Tremendously grateful to each person I've met, for the families that took us in and treated us as equals. Immensely grateful to each person in this large, awkward, and family that I am so proud to be a part of. Because of this family, I've learned that I love having control, and I love knowing what is to come, and I hate unknowns, but then in turn, I've also learned to appreciate them and cherish the moments that don't go as planned, because those are usually the memories that I remember the most. I've learned that each person has a different survival tactic, and learning how to respect and live with such opposing ways of life is part of being a human being. I've learned that this world is really beautiful, good-hearted people, all just trying to survive. So I'll end today with a quote that, at least for me, puts my mind at ease for now. I beg you to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers that would not be given to you now, because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer. Rainer Maria Rill. Thank you. Questions? Thank you.